Welcome, welcome everybody. Hope you're doing alright. Enjoying this time. And one of the things we can do right now is take care of our body, our health, our nutrition. Make sure you drink plenty of water. That's the lubricant that gets our cells going and happy. We filter our water. And also, good idea to look at what you put in your body. So I said water. If you're drinking sweet drinks, sodas, etc., you may find that you get tired, sluggish, etc., because all the sugar. If you use coffee or tea, limit how much caffeine. So we're going to make some chili today. Many of you have had the opportunity to come and share a meal with me, whether it be at my house, at a drum circle, at a yoga studio, picnic, etc. And it's something that I enjoy doing it. In fact, a friend referred recently that she remembers going back 20 years and having my chili for the first time. So there's nothing super magical about it. But the idea is that it is something that you can use and you can change the ingredients seasonally. So if you have a garden, a friend has a garden, or if you go to the local farmer's market, you can get some of the best ingredients right then and there. So we're working with what we have today, and some of it's organic, not all of it. If you have the choice, buy organic. If you can't, at least see if you can buy it from a local farm. You want it as fresh as possible. You want the minimum amount of pesticides that you can get in your food, because that's a reflection of what's going to go on inside your body. And you can be making your liver, etc., work harder. So let's look at our ingredients today. So we have a nice green zucchini. These are very common, of course, in the summer. Some people have way too many. This one I was able to get organic. And yellow summer squash, which I was also able to get organic. And then something new we're going to do today is a Japanese sweet potato. That should be fun. Carrot. I was only able to get large carrots. We ordered online, and this is what was sent to us. And then I have a few stalks of celery. I do believe they're organic. Anything that's a root vegetable, so that would include your carrots, your potatoes, your celery. You really do want to make sure that they are organic when possible, because the soil contains the accumulation of all pesticides. And we have some organic scallions. You can always look for the labels, see that they're certified. For our base, I use crushed tomatoes. Sometimes I use whole tomatoes. I usually use a few whole tomatoes, so we're going to cut up some for those. You can add in as an optional ingredient some sun-dried tomatoes, something you might want to think about. You want a little bit different flavor and texture. And then I like a variety of beans, so I was able to get organic kidney beans, organic pink beans, and organic black beans. Now, if I was making a larger batch, I would probably double up on the black beans, and I might use light and dark for the kidney beans, and I might add something like cannellini, garbanzo beans, Roman beans. It's up to your liking, but a variety adds color, texture, flavor, and each has a little bit different nutrition. So we're going to start up. Do a little washing here of our vegetables. Let them drain. I actually washed these before, but they were sitting in the fridge. Using celery stalks, make sure you clean them up. And with something like the green scallions, which are nice to grow in your garden, the tops or the green make a nice garnish. So I'll put that on top of the chili later when we have dinner. Rinse out the roots. And we're going to go over our spices, but I'm just going to start with one because I'm going to start cooking. Cumin is something that I really enjoy, and it adds one of the nicest flavors to certain cooking. It can be used in Mexican cooking. It can be used in some other regions as well. I happen to have some seed. If you have seed, it's nice to use some. You start it in the oil while you're cooking your onions, while you're cooking your carrots, your hard vegetables. I'm going to add a little bit into the pan. Maybe a little bit more. If you don't, you can just adjust accordingly by using the powder and use that later in the meal. For the oil, I like a good olive oil, preferably organic. I know it costs a little more, but oil goes a long way. I make sure the bottom is just coated. And I'm going to start with our hard vegetables. I do not cut off very much. I cut off the minimal amount. And if I was at home, I would put these in the compost. And then I am going to split my carrot in approximately 2 pieces. The thinner part I will cut a little differently than the thicker part. Now, make sure that you have a sharp knife. There's nothing like getting cut with a dull knife. Very dangerous. A sharp knife will allow you better penetration right in. Now, if I was making a larger chili, I might cut some of the pieces on the larger size and cook them for longer. But we're doing a smaller version today, so I'm going to cut up everything just a little bit smaller. Usually don't cut that way. And this is not as nice a knife as I might use, but it's what's available. Go. So my finished pieces are bite-sized. The carrots take the longest to cook. Again, if I was going to do an onion, what I would use is a sweet Vidalia onion. And I'll put that in with the carrot at the same time, and the cumin seeds. And for onions, I like to get them nice and soft, translucent, and sweet. Now, if you're doing this at home at the same time, great. I'm going to try to go slow enough so that you can do about the same speed. Alright, so I've got my carrots ready. Some a little larger, some a little smaller. Again, allows for the texture. And do not want to burn anything. I'd rather it take longer to cook. I'm also used to cooking with gas, so I have to adjust accordingly. Alright, so next I've got my potato. This should be interesting. I'll add a little sweetness to it, but naturally. Ooh, purple inside. Some of them are white. This should be interesting to do. Now if you have some Yukon Gold, you could do that. I've added potatoes various times, not always. And the oil is heating up. We got the carrots in there. Potatoes are going right behind. And again, if it's a root vegetable like the potato, try to make it organic since it's been growing in the ground where fertilizers accumulate and pesticides. You really want to keep it as clean as you can. Of course, if you can have your own garden, you can have control over all the inputs, including the bees. Make sure you plant flowers to attract the pollinators. Alright, so again we've got these bite size, not as large as I would want. So I've got the heat up to medium. Alright, while that is getting ready, I'm going to open up our cans. Now, kidney beans do come in dark and light. There's actually white kidney beans as well. I peel these off. Put it in put that in the compost. All right. I am not a fan of can openers. We're going to see how well this one works. And if I struggle with it like I do, then we go to our next can opener, the old-fashioned one. Can't beat them. A little more labor. Well, and if that one doesn't work, we can still go to another one. There we go. You can see we're going to have some fun here, but that's alright. It takes a while for the food to cook. We'll stir it in a second. Now you can use fresh beans. I would encourage you to. If you're a fan of that and either soaking them overnight, I know there's a quick method where you can bring them up to boil for a minute and then let them sit for an hour and then resume cooking. We're not doing too well with these can openers. Oh, that's alright, we'll make it work. I also have the black beans, which I love. To me, it's not chili if you don't have some black beans in it. And basically black beans and kidney beans. These have a nice little pull up top. And I have a colander ready. Let them sit and drain while I'm cooking. Rinse out the can, get rid of the remaining. And again, if you were going to make it from fresh beans, you'd want to have the beans soaked, cooked, ready, drained, just like this. I also took the liberty to rinse these cans prior. Everybody's being extra careful now. Can't see me dumping them in, but I am. And I save my cans for instruments. We're going to have to finish. time we come down to Florida, we'll have another can opener. Let those drain. Time to stir. Get a nice spoon. I can smell the cumin. I might add salt at this time. Salt I don't use a whole lot of. If you do, make sure it's something that's not refined. So something like a Himalayan salt. Ground it fresh. And I'll add more as needed. Still working on this can here. The beauty of live TV, right? Unedited. There we go. And rinse them nicely. Sometimes a little foam will appear at the top. That's okay. Keep rinsing until it's clear. Alright, we're going to work on our next veggies. So we've got yellow squash and green squash. Again, I don't cut much off of each end, just enough. I know people who keep the ends on. You can eat the flower, why not? There's a bad spot. Take it out. So I look for a part where it's even. I'm going to cut that a little differently than where it's smaller. And again, bite size, I don't want it to completely dissolve into the recipe. Although I do want some of it to dissolve because that gives some of its texture as well. Just my heater, I'm going to have some crispy potatoes in there. Alright, so I cut this into quarters and then bite-sized pieces from there. Everybody's doing well out there?
Oh yeah.
Alright. I've got an oh yeah from the audience. So these are almost soft enough, but I will cook it to make up for it. So I'm going to go ahead and add this in. And work on my green squash. Now we'll get to the spices in just a second. Again, I cut off very, very little. I see people that throw away a good portion of the vegetable. And there's no reason for that. Follow the curve. I'm not one of those fancy chefs that cuts everything very quickly. Chop, chop, chop. I cook it slowly. Add my love. Add my flavors. Give it a stir. Now, my preference at home is a nice stainless steel pot, stainless steel spoon, etc. But work with what I got. can't say I've ever made chili cooking, but I mean camping.
I can make you smile.
Alright, we got our veggies cut up. And the celery as well. I don't use the discolored parts of celery. That's one thing I will throw away a little bit more of. If your celery has some of the green leaves in good shape, these don't, you could add them, or you could also use them as garnish. And the biggest part of the celery I might split down in half. Now another reason I'm cutting these smaller is the last time we made chili, we had a lot of leftovers. We didn't have a party, so I made thinking that I might have 6 or 10 people at least eating it. So having it smaller is helpful because we took some of the leftovers and we put them in burritos and then put them, well, we wrapped them like a burrito and then we turned them into enchiladas actually. We put smoked fire roasted peppers on, sorry, not peppers, tomatoes on top. Alright, give this a nice stir. And we'll let that sit a minute and we're going to add spices. Remember to hydrate yourself. Alright. Key ingredients. Didn't get to buy any fresh garlic, but I do have some jarred garlic.
So David wants to know if you're doing a 5-alarm chili.
No, I make mine more palatable for everybody. But when we get to the full ingredient list, you can modify things to your taste. So for example, we like garlic. So
usually you put some red and yellow peppers in.
I usually add peppers. Buying in bulk, we didn't always get the things we wanted. Alright, so what are the spices? So I didn't use a regular onion. Again, didn't have access to it, but I do have some chopped onion. I like to smell the ingredients, see how fresh they are. But normally I would use, for a big batch, 1 or 2 onions. Here's an optional ingredient, bay leaf. If you put it in, remember to take it out. If it's a larger batch, you might add 2 or 3. Optional though. Put it away for another time. Some basics. Ground pepper. I don't have a pepper grinder, but I have it pre-ground. And again, these things are to taste. I don't measure them. I go by feeling. I smell it if I know it's fresh. If you can get the mixed, the Telecherry red, the green and the white, and the black pepper corns, go for it. Another optional ingredient, turmeric. Good for your health, so why not add a little in? But not so much it changes the flavor. Just a little bit. Now we've already added cumin, so I'm not going to add any powdered cumin, but I do have some. Alright. My new favorite is adding in smoked paprika. Smoked paprika is really good. It adds a lot of flavor. If you can get fire roasted tomatoes and you can combine it with these, smell it. Just smell it. It's so good. Trader Joe's, I don't think I've found smoked paprika organic. I added a little extra in to increase the smokiness. But we also like your basic paprika. You can get Hungarian paprika. Each one is usually, each batch, each company is going to have. Again, I smell it, I decide how much I want to add in. This has almost a celery scent to it. Not as much. If you don't have celery, you can add in celery seed. Give this a stir. Just give you guys an idea here. A nice mix of colors without it falling out. I'm beginning to smell the spices coming together. Now, seasonally, I prefer to have fresh oregano and fresh basil, but this oregano's been around, so I'm going to add a little bit extra. I don't add too much. I don't want it to go in the Italian flavor side. And I like to take my spices and crush it between, release that additional bit of oil. And we have some basil. Now the basil here is powdered. I'm not as crazy about it. Okay, so some other part of the flavoring, you can get a Mexican blend, you can get chili powder, you can just get straight cayenne pepper. This will determine how hot it is. If you're using regular bell peppers, pick up either a jalapeno or an Anaheim or some other, you can get chipotles. You can get chipotles in a can, which is alright, just make sure they don't have vinegar. Now, I know some of you are going to say, but Dave, I don't have all these ingredients. What can I do? If you had to, look for some kind of package. I don't necessarily recommend this brand, but a chili mix that has a mixture of 5 or 6 spices is going to help. There's the celery seed. If you don't add celery, you can use a little bit of that. Put that in with the oil so that it brings out the flavor. And if you don't have the oregano, basil, etc., some Italian seasoning could work. But again, somebody's controlled the 5 or 6 ingredients in the ratio they like. I know that I like more of certain ingredients like the paprika. Alright, so the veggies are just starting to get soft. We can open up our tomato. Now, my preference is to have some plum whole tomatoes, which we ran out of, and I'm not going to the store just for 1 ingredient or 2 ingredients. See how good we can do with opening this one up. So I'm using crushed tomato, but like I said, I added more paprika. These can openers are definitely not liking this left-hander here. There we go. Oh, see, it'll start, and then it'll spin off. We have our assistant help with this off camera. We need the real cooking show. It's not like where we have before, during, and after. Alright, the original can opener is cooperating on the bigger can. I spoke too soon. am now. This is crushed, so I'm not going to have the texture of the whole tomato. You can get chopped tomatoes. But what we do have go in the fridge here. So I defeated my own thought, which I was going to tell you at the beginning, get all of your ingredients ready, check them, inspect them, etc. Give this a rinse. And that allowed me to have a few chunks in there. So we're doing this down in Florida. We normally do our cooking in New Jersey, at least for the other parts of the year. So we have a list of things that we're going to bring back with us next time. And that includes, we've got like 40 knives in New Jersey. We're going to bring that, and a larger cutting board, and bigger colander, and a grater. All good things. But you know what? Part of the fun is making do with what we got. I got my tomatoes cut up. I want to get the liquid off. Put them in. Stir it up again. All the spices are smelling great. And we got another tomato here. Well, you know what? We didn't add our scallion, did we? Get that going first. Now, for those of you who have a garden outside, if you cut the roots off and just leave a little bit of the base, put that in the ground, it'll grow. Another scallion. How cool is that? Get that out of the way so you guys can see what I'm doing. So I go through all the white part. And as we get towards the green part, we'll save this. Don't want to cook this, or if I do, not overcook it. And I'm going to turn our flame down for a second. Flame, haha, electric flame. This knife is so unsharp that I have to poke the tomato. Now these tomatoes don't really have any part where the stem connects to the fruit. So that little bit, I'll leave it in. Cut it in half, cook it. It's all edible. Alright, leave a couple larger, a couple smaller so we get some texture. Put them in. Now, you probably have a little bit of tomato left in there. A little bit of filtered water in. Tomato sauce. Alright, so we've got our beans that have been draining properly. Nice mix. Add them in. Now I'm going to stir and I'm going to taste this as it goes along. I will adjust my spices. Sometimes I add a little more basil. If I want it hotter, I'll add a little more chili powder. If the cumin seed didn't do a good job, I can always add a little cumin powder. And we're going to let that cook a couple hours. If you're going to join us later, we'll have dinner
So
soon.
David has a question.
We have a question. All right, so let's see here. David Griffiths. I'll answer him offline. That's not a cooking question.
That is a cooking question. It's about cooking. You talked about starting the
Oh.
cooking, and he's
Oh.
responding.
Okay, well I saw because he has mice in his garden. These can be started indoors in a small container of water, like a shot glass. But at some point you're going to have to plant them, and you want to make sure the roots are down below the ground. So that's cool. I like that. You know what? Since we don't have our smoked tomatoes, I'm going to add a few sun-dried tomatoes today. And that will add another flavor for sure. So I thank you guys. I will look for your comments later. And if you're going to join us for dinner, we'll see you later on. Thank you. Cook na stay.